Welcome back to Finnish Made Easier. Today we've got a very important subject. It's plural noun and adjective stems. So these are very useful on their own and also used in forming a few other things later on down the road. But before we can get into plural noun and adjective stems, you have to be able to understand normal noun and adjective stems. So if you don't already know how to form a normal or a singular noun or adjective stem, I would watch my videos on those. I have some videos on them to kind of explain how to form those ones first, which will be really useful in understanding how to make the plural stem. So I've got those linked in the description if you want to watch those. The reason those are important for understanding this is in order to form the plural stem, we're going to have to find the singular stem first, and from that I've got rules for how to turn it into plural. So this will be very similar to if you have done anything with verbs. Remember past tense for verbs, we found the normal stem, and then we used that stem to find a past tense stem, which usually changed to I. This one's actually going to be really similar, just with nouns and adjectives, where we're going to find the normal stem, and then we're going to change that into the plural stem, and it's also going to be marked by an I. So if you've seen my video on past tense verbs, you maybe get a little bit of deja vu here. It's pretty similar. Some of the rules overlap, but try not to get too confused with them, trying to think that they're the exact same, because there are some different rules between the two. So try to keep them a little bit separate in their head, but it is useful for remembering certain rules. They act very similarly, past tense verbs and plural noun stems. So kind of interesting. Let's just get right into it. So I've got here all the words that I'm going to be working with, and just to explain how this is set up, I've got the word and then the stem, and then I'll be writing in what the plural stem is. So again, in order to form plural stems, we need to find the singular stem, and then from there we need to find the plural stem. And all of the plural stems will end in an I. So it's a really good way to recognize when a plural stem is here. It's when it has an I. And these are used for when we want to add a case onto something but have it be plural. So if we have like the word talo, which is house, we wanted to say in the house, we add SSA, like I've talked about before, talos. But if we wanted to say in the houses, we have to do something to the word to make it plural, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And I do want to just make a small note that this doesn't work for every single case. This is mostly for the locative cases. We're going to use this plural stem, but things like partitive, genitive, accusative are going to have their own types of plurals, which I'm going to talk about in later videos, but these are really useful for a basis on how to form those plurals and for locative cases when we want to make a plural. So after all that explaining, let's get into it. So our first rule is when our stem ends in vowel I. So this V is for vowel here. There's not many stems that end in a vowel I, but when they do, it's actually just going to stay the same. So no change there. So we have like the word voy, which is butter. Voy, the stem of voy is voy, and the plural stem is also voy. So those ones are pretty easy. Their stem is usually just the same, and their plural stem is the same. So again, you just need to kind of know by context if this is going to be plural or not. There's not very many words like that, but I figured I'd start out with the easiest rule. Nice thing about having stems instead of just working with the normal words, working from stems instead of working from the word, is all these endings are going to be vowels. Unlike in my noun stems video, we have to go through like all these consonants as well. Luckily, all stems end in a vowel, so we're only going to work through vowels. I don't have A up here yet. I'm going to go through all the vowels besides A, and then I'll switch over to A, because A can be a little bit complicated to know what to do. But yeah, so if it's vowel I, it's just going to stay the same. The other main double vowel combination is if it's a vowel that's not vowel I, that makes one sound. So this is like a diphthong is what it's called. I've talked about it a few times before, where there's certain vowel combinations that make one sound and certain vowel combinations that make two sounds. So for example, tue makes one sound, but like radio makes two sounds. This io, and you say it's radio versus just tue. You don't pronounce it like tue. And that's just something you kind of have to pick up as you learn a little bit more which vowel combinations are one sound and which ones are not. This one's obviously easy to remember, is all ones that are the same vowel are going to make one sound. So like ma is obviously one sound. You're not like ma-ah. So if it has one sound, this one's gonna be kind of similar to past tense verbs, if you know how to do that. If we have two vowels that make one sound, we're going to drop the first vowel and then we're going to add I. So like tu, we're just gonna get rid of that Y and then we'll add an I onto the end. So since we get rid of the Y, it's like that, and then we add the I. So our plural stem is going to be te. So tu is the word, tu is also the stem, but the plural stem, so if we wanted to add like a locative case onto this, but plural, it's going to be te. And then this can kind of be simplified if it's the same letter, you can just get rid of one and add I. So again, we can get rid of that first one if it helps you remember it. Ma, and then add the I, my. So that's going to be the plural stem of ma is my. Nice, so those ones are also pretty easy. Just get rid of the first one, add I. This next rule, I also really like, very consistent. It's also similar to past tense verbs, if you've seen that. If our stem ends in an O, U, Y, or then we're going to just add an I as well. So very easy, add I. So like laulu, which is our word, the stem of that is laulu, it's the same thing. If we want to make that plural, laului. So laulu is song. If we wanted to make that plural, then put something onto the end of it. So like if we wanted to say songs with a case on it, laului. And then radio, we see here, this isn't a vowel with one sound. All the ones that aren't one sound are just going to kind of fall into the other rules, whatever they end in. Radio, which obviously means radio, ends in this EO, which makes two sounds, so we're just going to count it as an O. And when that's the case, again, just add an I. So we get radioe. And that could be radios with some case on it. This next one's kind of interesting. If it's more helpful to just work from the original word, then you can do that, but I like to just break it down all into the stems already. So whenever you come into a stem that ends in TE, then you're going to have to back up and kind of see what the original word was. This is the only type of word we're going to have to do this. But there's two types of words that have stems with TE, and that was things with vowel S, like this word here, vapaus, or things that end in SI, like vesi. You might remember that vapaus went to vapaute, and vesi went to vete. So whenever we have these TE words, we're going to have to kind of back up and see what the original word was. So if it's something like vapaus, so it's a vowel S, or you can just check if there's just a vowel S before it, then it's always going to follow this rule. If it has a vowel S in the original word and the stem has TE, so you're looking at the stems, you're like, okay, that's TE. Well, the original word was vowel S. Then we can drop the TE and add KSI. So we just get rid of that TE and add KSI. So we get vapauxi. And this will make some more sense in a minute. I'll explain a little bit how to remember that a little bit easier. But then if the original word was SI, so again we see here this TE, vete, just like vapaute, but the original word isn't just vowel S, it's SI. So there's the I after the S. Then the plural stem is actually just going to revert back to the original. So we can drop the TE and add SI back on there. So these types of words are actually very interesting, where the single word is going to be like vesi. Its singular stem is going to change, but then when it becomes its plural stem, it goes kind of back to the original. So if I put a case right on here on vesi, I'm actually putting it on the plural stem. So it's like waters. Maybe a better example would be Cassie as well. Cassie, if I put a case on just like kate, then it's just going to be hand, but if I put it on Cassie, then it's going to be hands. So it's going to work as our plural stem and just the normal version of the word, but not the singular stem. So those ones are kind of interesting. Watch out for those. But if it's not a TE, our E's are very easy. All we're going to do is drop E and add I. So we just kind of change our E into an I. So, for instance, kysymys, remember this kind of word, the stem goes to KSE, so kysymykse. So we're just going to take that E and make it into an I. So we get kysymyksi. Whoops, I forgot the S there, sorry. Kysymyksi. Dang, I'm having a hard time spelling here. Kysymyksi. There we go. So we take that E and just change it into an I, kysymyksi. And so this is where it gets kind of interesting. You see here that these are also vowel S, just like this kind. So when you're trying to find a plural stem, if it helps, when you're finding the normal stems, before we had to differentiate between vowel S would go to KSE, or vowel S would go to TE. But you can kind of take a shortcut here and see any one that has a vowel S, regardless of if it's vowel S or vowel S. If you're finding the plural stem, both of them are going to end up as ending in KSI and replacing the S. So vapaus goes to vapauksi, and kysymys will go to kysymyksi. So that's kind of a nice shortcut. When you are specifically trying to find a plural stem, you can kind of cut out the middleman. When every time it's a vowel S, then you can just take it to KSI. So that can kind of help a little bit. But other ones that are E at the end are also going to always change to I. If they're not vowel S, like ihminen, very common NEN ending, the stems are SE, so ihmise. And they obviously, you're going to change that E to an I, just the same. So if you want this to be plural, ihmisi. So ihminen is person. If I want to say people and put a case on it, then I can do ihmisi. So like ihmisella is like the person has, but if I want to say the people have, I can say ihmisilla. And this last one, if it ends in I, remember sometimes the stems change to E when it ends in I. A lot of times if it's older words, they'll change to E. So like ovi, we ove, and then we can just change that E back to an I for the plural stem. So kind of similar to how vesi went back to the original. If it changes to E, it's going to go back to the original, and it's going to be ovi. So door, this could be door when we put a case on it, and this will be doors if you put a case on it, ovi. And then last one before I switch over to the A's, how they work, is if it ends in an I, so this will usually be ones that started ending with I and didn't change to an E, then what we're going to do is drop that I and add EI. So we're still going to have a distinction between this type of this type of noun and this type of noun. So like vari, when its normal stem is just vari. It doesn't end in an E, it still ends in an I. And so to show that it's plural, they go vare. So you just change that I for an EI, or you can just add an E in before if that makes more sense to you, however you want to think about it. Similarly, tunti, the plural stem is not, the singular stem is not tunte, it's just tunti still. And so if we want to make it plural, we have to make it tunte. So it's still going to end in an I, we're just going to add in an E there to kind of show that it's plural. So yeah, that's how all the vowels work besides A. A lot of them are really similar to, like I said, past tense verbs. And so as you start to use past tense and plural, a lot of these start to become really intuitive. Exactly what you're going to do. But I just recommend practice, and try to notice this everywhere. Because it's kind of a lot of rules, but they start to become really natural as you start to use them. So like I said, last we have A. So I'm going to change up the board. A can be a little bit complicated to know what to add, and we can go through that. All right, I've switched up the board. Now we can talk about our A's. So as you can see, I've split it up into a few different categories of words ending in A, and that's going to be really helpful for kind of getting a grasp on when we use each one. So to start out, very commonly it's taught, these rules have to do with 2 syllables, but there are also rules with words with more than 2 syllables that are a little bit different. So I decided to break it up this way. We'll start with 2 syllables. So if our word is 2 syllables and it ends in an a, so not just like a normal a, it's the a with the dots, we're always going to change it to an I. So we can just drop the a and add I. So for example, isa, we can just drop that a and add I to get isi for our plural stem. And so that's going to work with all that are two syllables, like isa, and then they end in that a. We don't even have to think about anything else. It's always just going to be I. I will note here too, all of these ones with a are either going to end in an I or an OI. So very least, even if there's a lot of rules, know that there's really only still two endings it's going to be. If you can't think of something on the spot, just try either I or OI. Usually it's not going to be too far off. But yes, this one is going to be our I we're going to add. So isa goes to isi. However, if it's just a normal a, not the a with the dots or the a, then we're going to have to look what the first vowel is. So if our first vowel is a, e, or I, then we're going to use the OI, like I said. So we're going to drop a and add OI. So kirja, the stem is kirja. We see that its first vowel is I. So we can just get rid of the a and add OI. So like kirjoi. Kirjoi. So that would be books, our books plural stem. Or with this next one, sana, stem is also sana. This is word, and we can see that the first vowel is also a. And again, these are all two vowels, kirja, sana. First vowel is a, so it's going to fall into this rule. We're going to get rid of the a, add oi. Sanoi. So that's going to be our plural stem for the word sana. But if it doesn't have a, e, or I, it has o or u as the first vowel, then we're going to use the opposite ending. Drop a, add, whoops, I used that a for my next word, add I. So, koira, again, the stem's the same, but the first vowel is o, so it's going to fall into this second rule. So we're just going to drop the a and add I instead. So koiri. So kind of like this first one, just drop the a, add I. Koira goes to koiri. In a similar way, kuva, this first vowel is u. It's going to go to kuvi. Get rid of the a, add I. Kuvi. So these two syllable words ending in a are very common. A way I like to think of it is this one with o and u. Is the rule where we don't have the O. So I kind of think of opposite, because I would almost expect that if O was in there, then it would end in the O, but it doesn't do that. So think about it kind of the opposite way. That if it has O as the start of the word, it's not going to have O at the end. And then we use grouped with that. But if it has A, E, or I at the start of the word, then it will have O at the end, assuming that it's a low A. And of course, you might be wondering where the Y or the O with the dots are, but if the first vowel is either of those, then it's going to be ending in this type of A, so it's always going to be an I. But yeah, so basically you're always going to replace it with an I, not an OI, unless the first vowel was A, E, or I with two syllable words. So that one's not too bad, but then we have to deal with ones that are more than two syllables. So first, I wanted to talk about ones that are more than two syllables that are adjectives. So in this one, we're actually going to separate adjectives and nouns for like the only time in Finnish. We're going to separate the rules for the adjectives and the nouns. There actually was one time that we did this talking about normal noun stems, but it's going to be really easy. If it is an adjective, we're always going, that's more than three syllables. I have to specify. This doesn't apply to the two syllables, but if it's an adjective that's more than two syllables, we're always going to drop the A and add I, not the OI. So all the adjectives that are more than two syllables are always just going to end in I. So like ihana, for example, that's an adjective. It's like wonderful. Ihana, we're just going to get rid of the A and add I, like we've been doing. Ihani will be our stem. Next one, lämmin. Remember, this one had kind of a weird way to form the original stem. Lämmin goes to lämpimä. This means warm. So again, an adjective, and lämpimä is more than 2 syllables, lämpimä. And so it's going to go to lämpimi. Get rid of the A, add I. And also I should mention that when it's more than 3 syllables, we're not going to distinguish between the A with the dots and the A without the dots. That's only with 2 syllables. The last one, nopea, which is fast. Again, it's an adjective, so we can know. We can just get rid of the A and add I, nope. And you might notice also this one doesn't fall into the vowel that was at the very start, because again, this is not a 1 sound vowel combination. So it has nopea, which is also why it's 3 syllables. It's not nopea. Like 1 sound is nopea, nopea. So it's going to be 3 syllables, and it's not going to fall into that vowel rule at the very beginning. We're going to count it as ending in an A. And since it's an adjective, it's 3 syllables or more, we're just going to replace that A with I. Nope. So it's pretty easy with adjectives. If you can see, okay, it's an adjective, more than 3 syllables, or 3 or more syllables, then we could just use the A instead of, the I instead of the OI. However, if it's a noun, we're going to split it into 2 categories. So if it's ending in an MA, a VA, or a JA besides IJA. So IJA are going to fall into the second rule. But if it's any other JA, so like AJA, UGA, OGA, JA, sorry, not G, then it's going to fall into this for all the JAs besides IJA. Then this one we're going to use the I. So drop A, add I, not OI. So like elämä, which is life, that's a noun, not an adjective, and it's elämä, 3 syllables. So we're going to go elämi. And then opettaja, this ends in a JA, that's not IJA. Opettaja is teacher, so again, it's a noun. And since it's JA, but not IJA, we can just again drop the A, add I, giving us opettaji. Opettaji. And our very last one, I'm sure you can guess what it is because it's not just adding an I. We're going to drop the A and add OI. If it's more than 3 syllables or 3 or more syllables, it's a noun and it doesn't end in one of these. Basically, all the rest of the endings are OI. So I would memorize these ones rather than these ones because this list is a lot shorter. But the list I came up with was LA, NA, RA, KKA, IA, IJA. I even know a word with EA that follows this, but that's very rare. Essentially, everything besides MA, VA, and JA are going to follow this rule, including even IJA, which is that we're going to drop the A and add OI. So like peruna, again, 3 syllables, peruna. And then it's a noun, peruna is potato. And so we can get rid of the A and add OI because it ends in NA. It's not one of these, so it's going to fall into this category. Perunoi. Perunoi is going to be the plural stem for peruna. This one, tekia, this is an example of the IJA. I told you IJA falls into this category, while all the rest of the JAs are this category. Tekia is like a doer. So we can get rid of that A and add OI, and we're going to have to keep the vowel harmony here. So since this is a high A, we're going to use a high O. So we're going to get tekiye. So if it was a low A, we'd use just an OI, but since it's a high A, we're going to use this high O. So tekiye. And then asia. Again, asia, kind of like nopea. It's not 1 sound, it's asia. So it's going to be 3 syllables, and these aren't going to be a single vowel combination. Asia, and that's IA, like I said, is one of these here. So we can drop the A and add oi. So asioi. So that is all of them for A's with noun stems. You can tell a lot of them are that we're going to use I, but just be careful about the ones that use oi. So the only ones that use oi is if it's 2 syllables and the first vowel is a, e, or I, or if it's more than 2 syllables. If it's a noun that doesn't end in ma, va, or ja, then it's also going to use oi. And they both come up all the time, so it's very important they're both not just always replace it with an I. But do know that it's always going to be I or oi, so that should be helpful for remembering it. But yeah, A's can be a little bit complicated, but I think breaking it down like this is really useful, not for when you're on the street and trying to say a sentence that you can think through this whole chart, but that you can know when you are correct when you're looking and learning it, so that it can become more natural and that you can learn it correctly. Get good habits when you're speaking. So yes, that's A. Now that we've learned all of them, I'm going to change the board once again, and we're going to do some quick practice, some review of all these to hopefully get it stuck a little bit better in your head and see exactly how these are used. All right, I've switched it up and added some examples up here so we can go through them all really quickly, how to form the plural stems, just some practice, and to kind of see how it works too, we can add STA onto them to kind of see how that process works. If we wanted to add STA on the plural version of these words, how do we do that? So let's start out with a word like perhe. Perhe is family. So first we find the singular stem, which I've given you all the singular stems just for simplicity. Perhe, the singular stem is perhe. So this one we can see is a vowel that make one sound. So this one we can do perhe and get rid of that first E, add I. Perhe is our stem. So if we want to add STA, then that's how we would put it on family. So if I want to say like from families, I can say perheistä versus just perheestä, which is just be like from a family. Perheistä. Oh, and sorry, vowel harmony here. It's got to have the high A there. Perheistä. If you don't know what vowel harmony is, I've got a video on that, by the way. But that is how this is all going to work. So if you want to pause it now and try it on your own to test your understanding of this, feel free. Then I'm just going to keep going through these and you can check yourself after you do it. So the next one, numero, which is number. Numero ends in this O here. Ones that end in O, we add an I. So numeroi. So we just add an I onto the end there, and then yeah, we can put the STA on. So I want to say like from numbers, I can say numeroista. And STA can be used for a lot of things besides just from. I'm just using that for simplicity. But so if we want to say from a number, we could say numerosta, but numeroista is going to be the plural version. So we want to add STA onto käsi, which is hand. Käsi goes to käte. And then you remember these TEs are really interesting. TE, we're going to look back to the original. And this is an SI, not a vowel S. So it's going to go back to SI. So we're going to have käsistä, where our plural stem was just käsi again. We can add that STA right on there, käsistä. This next one, avain, which is key. The stem of avain is avaime. And this one ends in an E and not a T. So E's are pretty easy. We can just replace the E with I. So we get avaimi. Then we can add STA, sta. So avaimista is from the keys rather than just avaimesta, which is from the key. This one, tärkeä. I've got some A's here coming up next. So tärkeä, we can first check how many syllables is this. Tärkeä, that's gonna be 3 syllables. So we're gonna fall into that group. And then tärkeä means important. And so that is an adjective, not a noun. And we remember that all adjectives that are 3 or more syllables, you can just get rid of the A and add I. So this one's going to be tärkeä, and then we can add the STA, sta. And then metsä will be our next one. This one is how many syllables? Metsä, it's 2. And since this one ends in a high A and it's 2 syllables, we can also know that it's just going to be get rid of the A and add I. So we get metsistä. So from the forests rather than from the forest, metsistä. This next one, kissa. Again, 2 syllables, kissa. So we're gonna have to look at the first vowel, which is an I. If the first vowel is A, E, or I, with this type of A, then it's going to be OI that we're gonna add instead of I. So we get kissoi, and then we can add the STA right on there, kissoista. And then this last one, minuutti. This one ends in an I in its stem as well, so it doesn't change to an E when we do the stem. This means minute, minuutti. And so when it ends in I, remember we add the E before the I. Minuutte. And then I threw this one in here because I wanted to remind you that even when we have the plural stem, we're still going to soften when we add STA. So I'm going to get rid of one of those T's. It's going to soften to a single T. Minuuteista. Minuuteista. So still going to soften when we have plural stems. It's going to work the exact same. Minuuteista with just one T when we add STA. So that is a nice review of plural stems. If any of those were hard for you, I'd go back and watch that part of the video again. I would totally recommend reviewing this a lot and doing a lot of practice. Like I said, I've got a super useful document in the description where I compiled all these rules into a really nice list with lots of examples. It should be really useful if you have questions or just kind of want to look at something on your own. This document you can look at and has lots of practice and examples, so hopefully things can start to click a little bit more. But I hope that as you start to use these plural stems, it'll really expand what you're able to say, and it'll be able to start to be more familiar and more familiar as you use it more and more. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that was helpful, and we'll see you in the next video. Heippa!